rolling. Camera is on. It's recording. Actually recording this time.
Yes, we back, baby.
Back like we never left. All right, so this is actually part 8 of our testimony. Part 8. I can't believe we actually made it through 8 videos. All praise to the Most High. We've been talking about doing this for forever. We made it to part 8. So, if you have been following along with our testimony, if you've watched any part of any of the previous videos that we've recorded and put out, we thank you, and we pray that our experiences that we've been through and the grace and mercy of the Most High has been a blessing to you and an encouragement. This next part, we're praying that it will be even more so. We'll get into more of kind of the depths of despair that we went through and some of the darkness that we fought through to get to this point. So we pray that this will be even more encouraging to you guys as we lay ourselves bare and show you that, again, this has been a recurring theme. If he can do it for us, he can do it for you. This is not about glorifying sin or propping ourselves up as some great wonders. This is about just being real and letting you know that the darkness and evil in this world can be overcome by the Most High, and if you trust in Him and follow His way. So,
Absolutely.
Did you want to add anything?
Yeah. We're gonna share our rock bottom with you and how, the Most High really, He'll bring you there sometimes so that you can, humble yourself as you just come to the realization of who He is, and we'll get into it some more, but buckle up, Buttercup, because it's gonna get real.
It's gonna get real, and hopefully this helps also for people to understand the level of commitment that we have now to the Most High's Word, and once we start getting into the actual more spiritual Bible study-esque kind of videos, you'll understand why we have such a strong commitment to the purity of following Yah in His Word and not according to the doctrines and traditions of men. That's going to be a strongly reoccurring scripture that we use. And just with my personal story, I have a lot of background in the organized modern Christian church, so you'll see why this will be a big part to show you why we have such a strong commitment to the purity of Yah's Word, not teaching for doctrines, the traditions of men, and our implicit trust in Him, because once you hit rock bottom and the Most High has pulled you out, it brings, in my experience, a different level of humility and gratitude.
Absolutely. Yes, very eloquently said.
Thank you. All right, so part 8. So the last part we left off on was, I think the last thing we kind of touched on was there were some medical issues going on, and we just kind of left on a little bit of a cliffhanger that Sarisa actually received. She was on some prescription medication from her doctor due to the medical issues. So one thing you got to understand, and please interject whatever you want to. One thing you got to understand about Colorado Springs, especially during that time, was, in retrospect, there was such a strong demonic spirit of addiction that had been unleashed on that city. It was unbelievable. And it was funny, we actually, after we had been back in St. Louis for a little while, the last time we went back to visit, it was like, and this was after Yah had cleaned us up and delivered us and brought us into a relationship with Him, a real relationship with Him, and we went back, and like the kingdom of darkness and that demonic presence was palpable in the city. You could see it all over the people. I always joke and tell Teresa, like, the sky was gray, like a regular daytime sky. It's supposed to be just blue, but it was like, even the light looks different there, like the sunlight. The sky was like this weird gray color, and I said it was like being in an episode of The Walking Dead. It was crazy. It was crazy. But that's getting a little too far ahead, so let me reel it back. So just understand that there was a strong spirit of opioid addiction that had been unleashed over the whole city. Really, all the major places in the state, because I understand Denver was having a lot of issues as well. And specifically at that time, it was opioid addiction. It was a vicious, violent spiritual attack that had been unleashed on the city, and they was getting beat up. Right, the whole Springs was not winning that fight at all, at all. So I don't know if you want to take from here a little bit.
Yeah, it was dark. It got dark, and also, just to understanding we have free will, and so I am not. I take full accountability for my actions.
Absolutely.
And the decisions I made that led to everything that happened during that time, and full accountability.
Absolutely.
For sure. Though it was definitely a spirit, and as I kind of how that pharmakia works. The more you take, the more dependent you become. And I did, like you said, I did have a true medical issue at the start. I had a fracture in my lower spine, and so that's what started it all. And but it definitely became a whole other beast, literally. And just, I was not myself. I was not. I was being fully driven by this spirit of addiction at all times. And so it got ugly.
Yeah.
It got ugly.
And along with, because again, remember, she was well within the legal rights. She had gone through this according to the system. Like, she had an actual prescription from a doctor. I also had, I was kind of introduced to opioids at this time as more of a recreational party drug kind of a thing. That wasn't really my thing growing up. I was a little bit more into the athletics and stuff, so a little bit more. I wasn't like, I partied and stuff, but I wasn't really big into like a lot of the recreational drugs and stuff, because I always lived a little more clean, because I was very like fitness conscious. So I was introduced to it during this time as more of like a party, like social kind of a social drug, basically. Something that you do for fun. But funny enough, I actually had a legitimate medical issue myself during this time, and I actually was born with scoliosis, and I have pretty pronounced scoliosis actually. And again, like my wife was saying, not making any excuses, taking full accountability. Like, my own decisions, the decisions we made brought us to the point we got to. But I did suffer from some pretty severe back pain on and off throughout my life, just because the scoliosis is so bad. I had like a triple affected scoliosis effect. So my spine, if you see an x-ray of my spine, it's crazy. And if I can find it, I might put it up while we're talking. But
it looked like the Superman logo.
Like the Superman logo. Like, my spine literally looks like an S. Okay, so it's like curved side to side, like in an S, literally. It's curved side to side. There is a front to back curvature if you look at it from a side profile, and it's also like twisted, like the spine itself, how your spinal column is supposed to be straight. Well, mine is like warped, like kind of twisted off center. So there's like this three-way, I don't want to say mutation, but like, I'm not like an X-Men or something, but like this three-way kind of damaging effect of the scoliosis is just bizarre. And it would cause, understandably so, some back issues on and off. And so during this time, also being the the young enterprising people that we were, we realized that there was a huge opportunity to make some money during this time, because the opioid addiction was so huge over the city. Everybody was doing it. So not only were we partaking, like, just as a party thing, when you saw the desperation that people lived by to obtain these things, and we were both able to get scripts for legitimate issues, and we saw dollar signs, you know what I mean? It was a big thing during that time to not only take pills for fun, but to hustle, because the profit margin was crazy. It was crazy what people would pay a piece for these little tablets of death. Like, it was unbelievable. And she mentioned pharmakia earlier. We'll get into that in more detail in like some of our Bible study scriptures, but if you're familiar, in the New Testament, they they reference pharmakia, and that's where we get our term pharmacy from. But pharmakia in the New Testament is actually the Greek word for sorcery. Okay, so you have to understand that our pharmaceutical system is built on sorcery, on witchcraft. And if you think about it, a big aspect of sorcery or witchcraft is mixing different ingredients, different elements in the physical realm to cause a spiritual effect. So for everyone that, like the cognitive dissonance kicks in, or, you might think, you're doing too much, you're tripping, like, come on, sorcery, witchcraft. Well, think about like witches and sorcerers mixing potions, right? It's taking concrete, physical, different elements, mixing them together to cause a spiritual effect. The Most High knows what he's doing. When he called sorcery pharmakia, he did it for a reason. The pharmacists that create these drugs are sorcerers. They're mixing together physical components to cause a spiritual effect. Make no mistake about it. And in our future Bible study videos, we'll get more into that and prove that to you. Yes. Not only prove that that's what it does, but we can prove to you that they know it. They're doing it on purpose. So understand that these drug addictions are physical, but the physical is the effect. That is just an effect of the spiritual spells that they are putting on people through these pharmaceutical drugs. Okay, and so once that kind of started, it wasn't really a big deal at first, but the way that the spells are interwoven into these potions, they are designed to cause you to accelerate. Okay, it's like everyone says about drugs. You start off as under control, it's just for fun or whatever. But as your tolerance grows, then so does your intake. You need more and more and more to achieve that high. And you got to understand, opiates and painkillers are really just like watered down heroin. Like, that's really what it is. You have other type stuff like people would take like Adderalls. Those are like more uppers. You hear a lot about like students taking those when they have to like cram for finals week and stuff like that. Those are uppers, and that's really just like meth. It's just watered down methamphetamines. Like when you hear about meth addicts, that's what Adderall is. Ritalin is meth. Just it is what it is. But the painkillers, the opiates, are more downers. They're more relaxing, and they like slow you down. Those are more just watered down heroin. So you are on hard drugs if you're taking. It's legal hard drugs. That's what opiates are, and they're handing them out at doctors' offices.
They know exactly what they're doing.
Facts.
And unfortunately, during this time of the few years, I had, when I was pregnant with my firstborn son, I had a doctor give me a pain prescription for oxycodone, and she said that it was safe for me and that it would be perfectly fine. And so, I, unfortunately, with that spirit, I took that and I ran with it. And during these years, we tried to back off of it so many times, but we were in our in our honeymoon phase of our marriage, and we had 2 other beautiful babies during this time, and all praises to the Most High. He kept them healthy. They were born healthy, and
no birth defects.
I thank him for that from the bottom of my heart, because he knows I was an absolute mess. I was a mess during that time. So we had our second born, our little boy Caleb, in 2013.
Well,
no, 2014.
In 2014, you can see it in 2013.
Yeah, I was pregnant with him in 2013. He was born 2014, and then we had our beautiful baby girl. She was born in September 2015. So all during this time, I am, having children.
We're married by this point, so don't look at that crazy. All right. Yes, they are back to back, but we are married by now.
Way too handsome. That's what the issue is.
That's not
Just
true.
couldn't leave him alone.
Just ignore
that. So yeah, we kind of stepped our children, our 3 beautiful blessings. I did have to have C-sections for all 3 of those. During the 3rd pregnancy with our beautiful baby girl Joselle, I actually, at this point, I was just so tired of the addiction, and I tried to get some help.
This is crazy. Listen to this, y'all.
I didn't know what to do, so I started off by going to a counselor, and they told me, well, we don't do that here, so maybe you should just go to a hospital. And so, just not knowing what else to do, I went to the hospital and I told them what was going on, and that I was trying to get some help to get off of these things. And they unfortunately did not have any sort of good advice for me. They didn't have any sort of medical plan for this type of thing at all. And so they basically said, well, we don't know what else to do, so we'll just prescribe you a bottle of pain pills, and you can give it to someone who loves you, and they can help wean you off. So literally their solution for me trying to get free of this addiction, as I was pregnant with my baby girl, was to give me a bottle of pain pills. And so that just tells you where our medical system is. And not only that, but they also called DHS on me because I was pregnant. So that was their help that they gave me when I tried to go through, the right means of getting myself off of these horrible drugs. It was so crazy. So I actually when I had her, I had a C-section. I had C-sections with all three, but with her, I opted not to have opioids afterwards, and so I was thugging it out. I had a whole, full-on incision in my lower stomach, and I was so determined to be free of this and to not live this life anymore that I went with the lowest form of, it was not considered an opioid at that time, that I could possibly do. So that, just to show you like how fed up we were with this lifestyle, and how, it was just evil. It was just evil.
It's demonic.
It was so, just such a pit of despair.
Yep.
Like he said earlier, it's just awful. And during this time, when you open yourself up to that, you open the door for demonic activity. And there were, the demons ain't just gonna come one at a time. If you let them in, they will bring all of their friends. And so we had so many attacks on our lives during this time, like literally trying to take us out. And I don't know if you want to go first, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
So one thing that was in hindsight was almost like kind of strange, but it was kind of strange at the time, but in hindsight I realized that it was yet again the long suffering and grace and mercy of the Most High, because he could have turned us over to the consequences of our sin whenever he wanted. We could have gotten what we deserve many times over, but
yes.
Again, his grace and his mercy, like I said, once we get to the end of this and start doing our Bible studies, you're going to understand why we're so grateful and so committed, because Yah was so gracious and merciful and long-suffering and kind.
Yes.
And in hindsight, it's so evident that he had a plan for us, which is why we're doing these videos, which is why we're so determined to get our story out there, so that if it can help anyone else, like if these videos get 3 views a piece and no one ever cares, and they help one person before we leave this realm,
Yes.
success. Like if it can just help one person, because we are so grateful for beating the odds, beating the statistics. So one thing that was kind of weird while it was going on is it seemed like, and there are various reasons why I think this happened. I don't want to get too far off track, but it seemed like the spiritual attack, the spiritual bondage was maybe just a little bit stronger on Sarisa than it was on myself. Like I said, I think there's reasons for that, but and I'm not, comparing. It's sin is sin. The filth is the filth. But it seemed like the bondage and the violence of the attacks and the attempt on bondage were just a little bit stronger on her than myself, which I, in hindsight, believe was also the grace. I can't keep saying hindsight, which I think was the grace and mercy of the Most High to keep, to allow us to kind of navigate with some semblance of safety through this time period, because He did have a plan for us to come out of it. And so keeping one of us a little bit more pulled out of the situation allowed for at least some semblance of a safety net. And again, this is not pride, I'm not puffing myself up, because I was down there in the dumps too, right there in the despair. But I think it helped us to navigate just a little bit. He kept me pulled out of it just a little bit so that I could be a little more aware, a little more clear-headed, because when you're fighting through this addiction, it is like a constant fog. You gotta understand, like you're like almost in this perpetual daze, this haze of heroin-esque type of, and it's this unending hamster wheel, this rat race of trying to constantly find your next fix, because like I said, it's really watered down heroin. So it's just this unending passionate, violent struggle of constantly trying to make sure that you've got your next dosage available so that you don't start going into withdrawal. Because that, if you have any doubt about whether or not the addiction itself is spiritual, you've never gone through or known someone that went through withdrawal. That is physical evidence of spiritual warfare. I don't care what you say. And so being that Yah was merciful and kept me just slightly pulled out of it a little bit more, which I believe was to be able to do somewhat of my job as a husband and father, and being the covering for my wife and my family, to be able to kind of help to keep an eye on my wife a little bit better, which again, that wasn't me, that was just His grace and mercy. But even so, I was still an active participant. And so one of the spiritual attacks, well, there was a couple that I went through, is there's two incidents that really stand out. These are so crazy to me. So at one point, now this wasn't actually related to the drugs at all, so thankfully, but I was on my way home one night and it had snowed really, really bad, and I was driving, and due to the road conditions, the car kind of spun out, right? And I had spun out and I ended up horizontal across the lanes, right? So I'm driving this way, I spin out, I end up horizontal across the lanes, and I'm trying to pull off the road into a parking lot. Well, there's this small-ish truck that's coming. It's like a moving truck, like one of the smaller to mid-size U-Haul size trucks. It's not an actual U-Haul, but it's that style of moving truck. So he's coming up the road. He's unable to stop in time because the roads are all slushed out and snowy and icy. He's not able to stop. He starts sliding and he T-bones the car. Now, all praises to the Most High. He hit the passenger side and not the driver's side. God only knows what would have happened if I'd have been facing the other way and he would have hit the driver's side, because it totaled the car out, okay? But either way, it was still a very violent collision. My head bounced off of the driver's side window. I ended up getting a pretty bad concussion. I've never had nosebleeds a day in my life. That was never a thing for me. Ever since the car accident, I would just get these random gushing Niagara Falls level nosebleeds in the most random times for seemingly no reason whatsoever. I would just be sitting at work, sitting at the desk typing, and then all of a sudden, like, it would just come gushing out like you had turned on a faucet. And it happened multiple times. It was like a weird regular thing, which I believe is just a side effect of the accident. But anyway, so it was very bizarre, just to kind of go into how I'm completely convinced the enemy was trying to kill us. So I'm going for treatment, due to the insurance and everything. I'm going for treatment due to some of the physical damage from the accident. I had the concussion and a lot of like neck and shoulder and back pain and so on and so forth. So I'm going to this chiropractor's office that looks legit. It's in a real like kind of doctor's office compound kind of a thing. It's like one of those buildings that has suites in it, So I go to the suite where the chiropractor is. This is all insurance set up. This is set up by the insurance and it was a moving company. It just wasn't U-Haul. It was a moving company. So their insurance was paying for my treatment. So I go there, and I'm supposed to be getting this like new kind of cutting edge, I guess, experimental treatment to alleviate the back and neck and shoulder pain from the accident. And looking back on this, again, the haze and the fog that you're in, you make really ridiculous, irrational decisions, because in present day, I would have never agreed to this. Like, this makes no sense. I'd have never gone for it. But anyway, so they're like this weird kind of experimental treatment I've never heard of, and they're saying they're going to try this new like electro-stimulation process to alleviate the pain. And if anyone has ever heard of this, if anyone watches this and you're familiar with this at all, please put it in the comments. I'm terrible at reading comments. I just want y'all to know, but I will do my best to remember on this. So they have me go into the office. I have to take off my shirt, my wife beater, everything. Take everything off. I have to take all the jewelry and metal off. So I take out my earrings, take off my wedding ring, my necklace, and I laid face down on this table. They have this weird like little machine thing that's on wheels. They roll it in, and it has a long wire attached to it, and then there's like this metal wand tube type of thing with a rounded end. There's like buttons and screens and dials on this little rolling machine, and they can like set whatever the voltage or whatever, I guess, or the pulse level or the frequency of the electric waves that they're going to use. So they set it to a certain amount. They're like, okay, lay face down. We're going to turn it up to this particular voltage, and they put the wandage in my back. They're pressing, gently, and they're like rubbing it back and forth across the back of my shoulders and like up onto my neck and like down my back, up and down. And I can feel, that it's charged. The like electric pulses and waves. I can like feel them going into my, into my body, my muscles. And so then they're like, okay, you good? Everything's good? Okay, we're going to turn it up a little bit to this level. Just, let us know if it ever gets weird or if it gets to be too strong. Okay. And I'm, again, kind of like, I don't know how this is supposed to help. I'm kind of freaked out, but it's like, okay, they said this is supposed to help. So they crank it up a little bit more, and they're like pressing and rubbing the metal wand back and forth up across, up and down my neck, across my shoulders, up and down my back. And it's like, ooh, that was a little bit stronger. So like the electric waves, were a little bit, made you feel kind of funky, And they're like, okay, you're good. It looks like everything's good. We're going to crank it up just a little bit more. Let us know if you have any discomfort. And so they crank it up again, and they're still rubbing. And when they did the third one, it was like, I started to feel really weird. Like the waves kind of going into my body. It started to make my body feel really strange, and it also made my head feel really weird. And when my head started feeling really weird, that's what freaked me out. And so I was laying and I was like, all right, I'm done with this. I don't like how this is making me feel. I don't know what the heck is going on. I'm done with this. So I'm like, hey, yeah, this is, because they were like, let us know if it starts to hurt. And I was like, yeah, it's making me feel really strange. I think I want to go ahead and stop. And mind you, they had been telling me this whole time, let us know if something starts to feel weird and we'll stop. So I do that, and then they object to it. They're like, oh, no, it should be fine. We don't even have it up that high. Just try to hang in there a little bit longer for us. We're going to crank it up a little more. And I'm like, haven't they been telling me this whole time to let them know if something goes wrong? And so I'm like, I really would rather not. And just like the energy shifts in the room, and they're clearly upset with me for following their own instructions and asking them to stop. And they start literally like arguing and fighting with me to try to keep me to continue the treatment, and they want to crank it up some more. And so I like, all praises to the Most High that I stood my ground. Thankfully, I wasn't high at this time. And so while we were arguing, they were still rubbing the thing, mind you, right? And so I was like, I stood my ground. I'm like, nah, like I'm good. They're clearly very, very disappointed. Not happy with me at all for stopping the treatment. So they let me up. I get up, get all my stuff, put my clothes back on, my jacket, and I go ahead to go leave. Excuse me. And on the way out, they had me stop at the front desk and schedule another appointment to do more treatment. And it's just like, okay. So I'm thinking, even if I come back, I'm not doing that again. We're gonna have to do something else. So I schedule another appointment. I go and leave. That is pretty much the last conscious, aware moment that's the last part that I really like remember, have like a hold of my memories remembering. The next thing that I clearly remember is calling my wife as I'm driving through Colorado. And that was the other weird thing. They scheduled this treatment for nighttime. It was like 8, 9 o'clock at night. Like everything was closed. All the offices were closed in the building. The suites, all of them were dark. All the lights were off. This random chiropractor's office was just still open late at night to do this random treatment. I was the only person in the building besides some of the staff. And so it was late at night at this point. So the next thing I remember, is calling my wife, and I can't remember how to get home. Okay? Now, the office was literally, I kid you not, like 5 minutes away from the house. Like 5 to 7 minutes away. And I had been to places in that location, that complex where the office was, many times. Funny enough, my doctor that I got my prescription from was in that same complex, okay? It was just in a different suite. So I knew that I could drive there and drive home with my eyes closed. I could not remember how to get home. And I couldn't tell her where I was. Like, I literally just, like, my brain just stopped working. And so I'm talking to her, and I'm trying to communicate what's going on, but I also realize that something's very, very wrong with me. So I'm like kind of freaking out a little bit. So not only can I remember how to get home, I don't know where I am in this city that I'm completely familiar with. We lived here for, she was born and raised there, but I lived here for years at this point. I knew my way around easily. I couldn't even tell her where I was. I didn't recognize anything. I couldn't recognize landmarks. I couldn't recognize, like neighborhoods, houses, businesses. It was even hard for me to like read the street signs to even see where, like, they just fried my brain, just short circuited me out. And so it's hard for me to even tell her the signs and stuff. So I know enough to know something's very wrong. So I'm like kind of panicking. Thankfully, and I think this was the grace and mercy of the Most High as well, he at least gave me the wherewithal to call her, let her know what was going on. And even though I didn't recognize where I was, I just started just explaining what I saw, okay, and just telling her. And I was like way on the other side of the city at this point. Like, we lived toward the southern end of Colorado Springs. I was like way on the north end of the city. So thankfully, she was able to talk me home, like, cause she recognized where I was based on what I said, I saw, and so she was just telling me, okay, turn here, turn there. When you get to this stoplight, make a right. Keep driving, drive past 3 stoplights, make a left. She just had to guide me home, like someone who had as if I was in a place I had never been. And we had lived here for what, 4 or 5 years at this point?
Yeah.
Maybe even 6, because we were there for a total of 7 years. And so I don't know, I'll let you talk about it from your perspective. Then I'll tell them what happened when I got home.
Yeah, I was freaking out because I'm thinking, okay, he's going to a chiropractor and he'll be home in 30 minutes, you know, like next thing I know he's calling me and he is clearly very disoriented. He sounds very panicked, which is super out of character for him. He's normally very level-headed, and I was just so confused because I was like, what did they do to you? What's the matter? You know, I'm like trying to understand why you went to the chiropractor and now you can't tell me where you're at. Like, it was so scary. It was terrifying, to be honest. And I'm like asking him, you know, what do you see? What street are you on? And he can't tell me. And so, you know, I'm like, well, just stop, you know, I'll come get you or something, you know, but he like couldn't for some reason do that either. Like he was like, no, I can't do that. And I'm like, okay. So, you know, he was able to tell me enough where thankfully I was able to get him home. And then when he got there, I'm just like, what is going on? You know, just so confused. And he tells me about this weird treatment, and like, I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I was pissed. I was ready to go up there and start flipping tables because like, I was like, what? First of all, I had never heard of no magic wand Electro-Shock before, except for in the horror stories of the olden days where they used to freaking lobotomize people and stuff. And so I'm like, I was so angry. I was like, we suing them, you know, like what in the world? But you know, thankfully he was okay. He made it home safely. That was all, yeah. He made it home safe. He was okay. The nosebleeds did continue and actually got worse for a while after that, which was also kind of scary. But
I'm sorry, you're right. The nosebleeds didn't start until after the treatment. That's right.
Yeah, and he would be at work and he'd be like, babe, I don't know what to do. Blood is just pouring from my nose. Like, people are freaking out around me. I'm like, what? So it was crazy. It was clearly the enemy was trying to take him out, and like that's just that's not normal. Nothing about that is normal
at all.
And it was very scary, but you know, praise Yah, he kept him, he protected him, you know, mind, body, soul, and he was okay after that. But that was not the first time nor the last that the enemy tried to take one of us out.
And just real quick, when I got home, I was standing in the kitchen and trying to talk to her, and she's standing there looking super concerned, confused, and enraged all at the same time. And so I'm trying to explain to her what happened and, you know, what they did and so on and so forth. And literally, I'm standing in the kitchen and I can like barely stand. I would think I was either leaning up against like the cabinets or the wall, and I'm like passing out on my feet. I'm standing there trying to talk to her, and it's like there's just like such a heaviness on me, mentally and physically, that it's like I'm literally passing out standing over my feet. And I've never fainted in my life, like not even close. This is not something that I deal with. And while I'm trying to talk to her, I'm like going in and out of consciousness on my feet, and you know, she's like, you need to sit down, lay down, whatever. And it was just, man, praise y'all for my wife. Like you guys, you don't understand, like the stuff that we made it through in our marriage. Like, we're so rock solid now, not because of some perfect existence, everything's peachy keen, because we live this fairy tale rom-com existence where everything is just like, we've been through some stuff. Do you understand? Like the scripture that says, he that findeth the wife finds a good thing. Like, I understand that on an existential level. She literally saved my life that night. I have no doubt that if I was not able to if I wasn't talking to her, I would have crashed, and you know, who knows what happened. The crash would have been terrible because I was literally losing my mind and probably would have passed out while I was out there driving. That effect would have kicked in. I didn't know where I was. Probably would have been all over the, like, I could have easily crashed and died that night. Easily. And I shudder to think about what would have happened if I would not have stopped them. What if I would have
Right.
gave in and listened to them and let
Right.
them continue the treatment? Like, if I had that violent of an effect after that short amount of time that they did it with just a couple of cranks, trust me, y'all, there was like 12 more dials worth of voltage that they could have cranked it up to, and it seemed they had every intention of testing them all. And if I hadn't have stopped them, I don't know what would have happened. Again, I'm not making any accusation or anything, but if you do any type of just a cursory study into Colorado Springs and the history there and the shenanigans that are going on that are part of that state, I'll just say it like that. We'll probably get into some of that stuff in later videos. Just know that is highly suspicious and terrifying in retrospect. Like, there's a lot of weirdness that goes on out there, and I don't know what they really had planned for me, but praise Yah that he gave me the wherewithal to stop, to stand my ground, to tell them no, to get out of there, and to talk to my beautiful, beautiful support, my rib, my pillow of rest, who saved my life, and not for the last time. Okay, just know, they're like, even before all of this happened, like, I would die for her in a heartbeat without even thinking about it, without question. It tells husbands to love their wives as Mashiach loved the assembly, loved the church. And what did he do for the church? He sacrificed himself for all of us. And let me tell you, I would sacrifice myself for her and our children without hesitation. There are a few things I am more sure of in life than knowing that she is my helpmeet, that she is my other half that the Most High created for me to be with. Like, trust me, we're in a place because we've been through some things. That's why our marriage is so solid. Like, she literally saved my life multiple times, and I legitimately don't know where I would be without her. Definitely not sitting here talking to y'all today. So I'm just so grateful for her. Just so grateful.